All right, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. Sorry, I got a little bit of a late start here, getting everything set up. Sorry, daughter's in town this week, so dealing with a few things, getting everything ready for her for the day. But, anyways, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host once again, Dan Thornton. I want to thank you all for tuning in today to Lions Talk Live. Sunday morning edition, and I figured we'd do a little bit of something different today. We dive into Brad Holmes, see if we can figure out some patterns, some norms for this guy, what he tends to do, what he tends not to do. Maybe we can have a little bit more of an investigative approach into what Brad Holmes has got planned for the Detroit Lions this offseason, what we should expect from free agency plus the draft. If we can do that, are we going to be 100% correct? Probably not. We're probably not going to have any real firm idea what the man's going to do with this franchise to help propel it one step closer to the Super Bowl. But let's see what we can uncover in today's episode of Lions Talk Live. All right, before we get into the gist of the meat of the show, if you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider doing so. We're about 90 or so subs away from hitting 5,900. I want to thank everybody for yesterday making a bit of a push to get us to 5,800. Now the road is on to 59, so if you haven't yet subscribed and you're willing to do so, surely would be thankful. Also, if you enjoy the content of the channel, don't be afraid to hit that thumbs up button. As you're all probably aware, it helps out the channel quite a bit. And last but never least, outside of being a dad, a coach and a YouTuber, I am also a realtor. Have been for a real long time. So if you're considering buying or selling property and you are in the state of Michigan, give me a call, shoot me a text. I'm around 24 hours a day, and here's what I tend to tell people, whether it's coaching related or real estate related. If you shoot me a text, I'll get to it as soon as I'm available. If you call and leave a message, as soon as I'm awake or whatever, I'll call you back. So don't be afraid to reach out to me. Even if you're outside the state of Michigan, give me a call or shoot me a text and see if I can throw some good answers at you. All right. So as we get into today's show, we'll see what you guys have to say about it. But I want to try to get some idea, really based on prior results, prior drafts, 2021, 22, and 23, what we can expect out of the Lions. That doesn't mean we'll figure out, hey, they're going to draft this in this round or whatever. But what can we find as far as the norms and tendencies? Let's see what you guys have to say. Excuse me. All right, Big D. Good morning, guys and gals. Hoorah! Woo! The first woo of the day. All right, JDC. Good morning, all. Good morning to you too. Hopefully, having a great one. 9 drinks. Woo! Chris Jones is an actual possibility. And I want to point out to everybody, 9 drinks last night sent me an article about Chris Jones. Could he potentially be a Detroit Lion? I'm not going to say we got breaking news. Chris Jones is going to be a Detroit Lion or anything, but that would probably not be a bad video to run later today. But the idea of him being next to McNeil, Hutchinson, and then whoever you're going to put on the other side, that's something, ain't it? I mean, to me, the Kansas City Chiefs, how do you let him go? If Patrick Mahomes is your offensive MVP and just a rare talent, could you not make the same argument for Chris Jones on defense? Do they win the Super Bowl without that guy? I'm not so sure they would. But it would be real interesting to see, could the Lions step up and get him? At that point, if the Lions went out and got him, I think we have to all believe that the Lions are in win now mode. Jones, I want to say, is 29, so about the same age as Goff. He's probably got about 2 or 3 years left of real high-end ability before things typically at least start diminishing. But that 2 to 3 year window lines up pretty consistently with what the Lions have to offer as far as their Super Bowl window. So let's see what shakes out with that. And 9 drinks again. Thanks for sending that over. All right, Brother Ken, good morning, Coach Dan and fam. Back at you. Hopefully having a great morning. Jerome, good morning, Coach. The 49ers fired Steve Wilks after 1 season and they went to the Super Bowl. Do you think they're do something right and will do something wrong by keeping AG? The Wilkes story, that's a really compelling one to me because the guys seem to have actually improved the defense over the prior year. Why they fired him, I'm guessing it's just something to do with the head coach and defensive coordinator just not being on the same page, not really enjoying working together. I mean, I don't know, man. It seems like if you're that productive as a defensive coordinator, is is the head coach just looking to put blame or a scapegoat on something, one reason or another, why you didn't win the Super Bowl? I would say this: I'm always looking for repeatable behavior in people's or situations. Jimmy Garoppolo became basically the scapegoat for the 49ers. Um, after the first Super Bowl loss, was it 2020? And now you've got another scapegoat this time around. So it's almost like Shanahan's always pointing the finger at somebody else instead of himself. To me, that's not ideal as a coach. You want somebody that says, hey, you know what? I am the head coach. The blame begins and ends here. Not, hey, well, Jimmy G, he couldn't get it done. Well, Steve Wilkes couldn't get it done. So, Aaron Glenn, I'm going to say this. The players really like this guy. MCDC really likes this guy. I will just say from an outside observer standpoint, Jerome, Aaron Glenn improved from year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3. I get he's still evolving as a coach, but next year I would anticipate this. He's going to make in-game adjustments faster. The same with Ben Johnson, same with MCDC. That's, to me, the biggest fault I find with them. And they still don't know what they don't know. There's still formations like when the Bears right before Thanksgiving basically used 2 guys and spy to try to disrupt a lot of the offense that Goff liked to run at that time, Goff and Ben Johnson. So it took him a little bit to figure that out. And the Packers used it, I get it, etc. But that's probably the biggest hole still, I would say, in both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. And the only thing that teaches that is time and experience. All right, morning, Man Bear, excuse me. Good morning, early birds. Back at you. Hopefully on a great one. Lone Wolf, do you think that Jimmy Johnson draft chart works in today's NFL? Yeah, I think it still has value as far as the value system or whatever you want to call it. I think teams might have they have modified it in the 30 years since he came up with it. I also think he caught a lot of people sleeping when he first introduced that to the NFL. It was some outside of the box thinking, and it made everybody else feel like when he would call and say, well, we're looking at that trade, but as you can see, the value is not there. And nobody wanted to look like we didn't have a chart. So they're like, well, let me double check. And, oh, wait, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we might have to come down. So I think Jimmy Johnson did a great job of tricking teams into paying more or going for less because they didn't want to admit they didn't want to have those charts. But Lone Wolf, do I think it's still in use today? Yes, but it has been modified a little bit over time, like all things are, right? All right, Man Bear, 6 people in here and only 2 likes. What's up with you? All right, yeah, if you guys are liking the show, liking the content, don't be afraid to hit the thumbs up button, please. All right, brother Ken, Jerome, I'm conflicted. Half of my brain says fire AG. The other half says he's made major improvements and growth as a defensive coordinator. And that's the other thought. If you fire someone, you better be sure the new person you're bringing in is equal to or supersedes that person you just removed. It'd be no different than just because I'm only bringing this up because it's been a topic for months now. If you move on from Aaron Glenn, the next guy needs to be equal or better. If you move on from Jared Goff, that next dude better be equal or better. You don't ever want to take step downs. And that's the tough part. Can you guarantee the next guy is going to be better? There are some that you probably have reasonable expectations they'll be better. Doesn't mean they will be better. All right, Jerome. Hey, Coach, do you have a favorite NFL coach, past or present, that you thought was or is the greatest? If you want me to just be like a fan, Wayne Fontes was the man to me. I loved interviewing him. I loved hearing his interviews. I thought he was awesome. Now, as far as a technical person, an X's and O's guy, I don't think Fontes would ever be confused with that. It's just that was not his strength. Not that he was bad with stuff. It's just it wasn't his thing. As far as Lions coaches, oh boy, Tom Moore. And I think the dude is historically underappreciated. He was the offensive coordinator basically for the Lions during the 90s runs. And then he went on to be the offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning and such. A lot of people probably don't know his name, but I thought what he did with the talent, that's the key thing, with the talent he had. Some of the Lions teams definitely had some offensive talent. Some of them were not so strong. Tom Moore did a great job with a lot of them, scheming people open, and you saw a lot of the same patterns continue when he went to Indianapolis. as far as other people in the league, I don't know, man. There's been other ones I paid attention to because I really like their schemes. The Minnesota defensive coordinator this past year, I don't remember his name offhand, but I really enjoyed watching him move chess pieces around. And I'm using chess pieces because today's thumbnail on the board, because I thought he did a great job scheming lesser talent into more favorable positions. That's when I look at coaches, that's one of the key things I try to pay attention to. It's easy to coach talent. It is incredibly tough to coach people who aren't talented and make them look talented. So if you can do that, you've got something, and that's one thing I would consistently look for as a GM when I had to hire subordinate coaches, people that can find ways to turn chicken stuff into chicken soup, and that's not something that all coaches can do. All right, Robert G. Good morning, Dan and crew. Back at you, buddy. Hopefully, having a great one. Brother Ken, back at you, G-Man. Yeah, well, hopefully everybody's having a good morning. All right, Robert G., good to see you, Brother Ken, 100%. All right, Jerome, hey, Coach, my 9-year-old son wants to play football, but there's a problem. He is on the autism spectrum. After watching the movie Forrest Gump, is it possible he could play, or am I just dreaming? No, he could play, 100%. There's been autistic players that do play. They're going to be probably more specific positions, but how much, I mean, it's not my area of education, but also if he's 9 years old now, where does the brain evolve to by the time he's 13 or 14? That will be something you'll probably want to talk to your corresponding physicians about, is paying attention to his neurological patterns as they fully grow and develop. I would also say, if you're talking tackle football, I would probably encourage you to wait until he's closer to 13 or 14, maybe 12, but talk to your physicians about that. All right, Michael, what do you got? Greetings and salutations, Coach and Duke Crew. Good morning to you, my friend. Brother Ken, back at you, Big Mike. There you go. 9 Drinks. Good morning, Dan and Duke Crew. Back at you, 9 Drinks. And again, thanks for sending that over last night. Dave, took me a while to figure out how Coach gets his inside info. I think I cracked the code from players' agents. I bet he knows a lot of them from over the years and trading stocks. I'm going to take a pause on answering that one. So I'm just going to say, David, good morning to you. All right, Thomas, what do you got? Greetings and salutations. All my bold prediction is Jack Campbell and Sam Laporta hype up Cooper DeJean to Brad Holmes so much that he moves up and takes him in the draft. Now, I like the way you're thinking on that, Thomas. I think that would be something that that's a real possibility that they could look at. The question I think we all know is Brad Holmes has got to see real value. And again, I got to get into these trades and everything, or excuse me, past drafts, but you look at people's tendencies, and he doesn't seem to enjoy trading up nearly as much as he does trading down. I think that tells you, somebody asked earlier in the chat about, do people still use Jimmy Johnson draft board basically, or guide? I think that's where Brad Holmes really exceeds at. He sees a lot of times where he can trade down, get more capital, but still get players of similar value to the position you just traded down from. Trading up, I mean, it could be, Thomas, that we're at the point with the Detroit Lions under Holmes' regime that you're going to see him make more calculated moves, trading up to acquire specific players versus multiple players. Because let's be fair, this team is pretty stacked. It's pretty stocked. The only reason why I would think that the Lions would want to encourage trading down is because, like the 9 Drinks pointed out, the potential to go after a big name free agent. Or if you're going to do that, I think Brad Holmes has got enough dollar general Brad in him where he's going to say, all right, I'll pay up to get this particular player, but I now need to bring in lower cost players to help offset that, kind of balance it out, if you get what I mean. Maybe he does trade up to get to Cooper, but I'm just saying it would kind of be a norm break for him, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. Jerome, hey, Coach, I really appreciate you answering all my questions, those about getting into coaching school or something. Don't have a lot of experience. Yeah, just keep learning, keep reaching out. Maybe you can reach out to a couple schools about being a volunteer intern, either at high school or college level. If you got time for the college level, don't be afraid to become or apply to become a GA, graduate assistant. You'll put in a ton of work, but you know what? You will make some connections. And one thing I would tell you, from either being a sports reporter or coach, this profession, almost like any other profession or these two professions, it really is about who you know. It's about the connections, the relationships you develop. It, it's true definitely in sports journalism. It's incredibly true in coaching. People don't know you, they're going to hire who they know first, unless you just have some sort of impeccable accolades. And I'll use this as an example. There's a friend of mine who used to coach, I don't know, 2 or 3 teams in the NBA. He was on staff for Cleveland when they drafted LeBron James. He then became the head dude over in China for the CBA. I mean, head of all their stuff basketball wise. Maybe a year or two ago, I don't know, somewhere in that range at least, him and his wife wanted to come back to the States. He just couldn't get even a coaching job somewhere other than basically an offensive coordinator, setup person at a particular college down in Texas. With all that experience in the NBA for over a decade, plus other sports and D1 programs, and then being in charge of all of well, I mean, no joke, literally the entire country of China as far as their basketball programs, Olympic and professional. Couldn't get anything over here because he'd been gone for so long that everybody he knew in sports as far as coaching was now gone. And there is a massive turnover every 2 to 3 years in the coaching profession, whether that's football, basketball, baseball, whatever. It's just it's a profession that grinds people up. So keep that in mind. All right, Panku, what do you got? Greatest salutations, all Holmes rules the draft. So I just can't wait to see what he does to upset the norm this year. Yeah, there's probably a lot of truth to that. Whatever he does, people are going to probably scratch their head at. But the one thing I will say for Brad Holmes is the longer he's around, I think he just gets more and more street cred, either from national media, local fans, or whatever it is. Nine Drinks, watching late every day, but where's my guy, Don Burr? I would want to say he was on here yesterday or the day before, but I have noticed Nine Drinks, he tends to come on a little bit later, more like 7:30, 7:45-ish, something like that. So maybe he's just, getting out of bed later and later. I don't know. Jess, what do you got? Good morning, all. And David, now that, sir, is a strong thought. Hadn't considered that. Could be you got something. You've got something with that one. Could be. I guess I'm not really sure what you're referencing. Sorry about that, Jess. All right, Doug. Good morning, all. In Brad we trust! Exclamation point! Woo! You're 100% right there. Yeah, whatever he does. So real quick, let's go back. You just kind of keep bringing up that we're gonna, hey, look into his prior drafts. Let's go ahead and talk about his very first draft. And we all get first round pick number 7. You're going to take Penei Sewell. Pick 2, Levi Onwuzurike. So right there off the bat, what can we establish? He wants to, at that time, identify weaknesses in both the offensive line and defensive line. Now he doubles down with pick 3 on Aleem McNeil. And that's in the 3rd round. So I get with Onwuzurike, the team was aware they're taking probably a little bit of a gamble there because of his back injury. We all now know 3 years later, the back injury is what it is. I mean, he's probably never going to be the player we all hoped he could become just because, hey, you got a spine fusion, man. That's no joke. The fact that he's on the NFL roster at this point, that really says something about him. All right, now we go to cornerback with the other 3rd round pick. You get Ife Melifanu. We all get he's now a safety, but he addressed the secondary. You get Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round. Also the 4th round, Derek Barnes, excuse me, and then a running back and Jefferson in the 7th round. So that's the very first draft. You can see outside of the 2 defensive tackles, and I think one could argue you only take 2 defensive tackles because you felt there was at least some reasonable expectation that Levi's injury could be debilitating. So he tried to cover as much of the team as possible. Now you go to the 2022 draft. And again, we want to look for consistency, normals that we can pick up on that are clues towards future results. And that is some stock trading talk right there. All right, so first round pick, we all get Aiden Hutchinson, edge or defensive end, what do you want to call him? Jamison Williams. So now we've got a defensive player, offensive player, different positions. Another edge, Josh Pascal. So like the first year's draft, we're really focusing on that defensive front. Now we go safety, Kirby Joseph. We go back to offense, James Mitchell, Malcolm Rodriguez, James Houston edge, Chase Lucas. So based on 2 drafts, you do start seeing some norms. They try to bring in multiple spots, or excuse me, players at each available position on the team. You do have a couple of drafts in a row, though, where they throw 2 picks at basically the defensive line. I think they've identified the defensive line is a bit of a weakness. Last year's draft, as I pointed out, each pick was at every single spot on the team. So you got a quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, cornerback / safety. And you get it. You addressed every position. So when we go to the next mock draft, I would say we want to keep that in mind, guys, just because it'd be my anticipation. You're starting to see the norm come out that Holmes is constantly wanting to bring in new talent across the entire roster, so to keep costs down. Sort of like we're just talking about with 9 Drinks, saying something about Chris Jones coming to town or a big price free agent. Let's at least go with that. I think there's a lot more, I think we can look at and say that it's a lot more possible for the team to do, or to anticipate Brad Holmes could do it if mentally he can say, all right, we're going to spend $30 million a year on Chris Jones or whoever, but now we're going to alleviate that financial burden by bringing in, a bunch of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders that bring down our cap number overall to offset that one guy. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on that. All right, France, greetings and salutations to all. Going to watch today's show and go to bed. Holmes is the guy that is always thinking of ways to get over on others. Yeah, I would agree with that. He's constantly moving pieces on the board, on the chessboard. Hookadoo. Good morning, Coach. Rise and shine, Do crew members. Back at you, buddy. Hopefully your day is going to be a great one. George, what do you got? Good morning, Do crew! ! One morning closer to free agency kicking off. That is true. We are getting close to about 30 days left, maybe just under 30 days. AJ Buchanan, greetings and salutations, everyone. How are we sitting with dead cap money, Coach? So that's a great question. I think we're overall, if you add it all up, we're just under 16 million. I want to say that's right. I want to say it's 15,700,000 and some odd dollars. In, I guess, I don't know. Hold on. Maybe I can find where the dead cap is. All right, 1 second here. Survey says, okay, Marvin Jones has a dead cap number of 800,000. Let's see, Isaiah Buggs 500,000. Then he got Vaitai at just under 4 million. Romeo Quara at 3.5 million. Garner Johnson, this I'd have to look into a little bit more, but 2.5 million. Charles Harris just a sliver under 2 million. Graham Glasgow at just under 1.5 million. Manuel Mosley 1 million. Teddy Bridgewater at $500,000. So there you go. There's your dead cap numbers. Glad I could access that for you. All right, Brother Ken, Brad Holmes is like a poker player. He says one thing and does another. Pay no mind to what he says. Pay attention to what he does. 100%. And just like when I had the breaking news videos for you guys over the last year or whatever it's been, you guys need to, I shouldn't say all you guys, but there are some people they get really twisted and, upset. Well, how do you know this? Or why would that happen or whatever? That is literally the life of a GM, is constantly trying to figure out how to get one over on somebody, how to get you to look one way so I can get something else over here. It's constant misdirection and misinformation. And that's where I think, I know we talked about doing it after the draft, but who knows, man, maybe we should do it before free agency or the draft. A day in the life of a general manager. And I'd only be able to tell you from my experiences, but to your point, Brother Ken, you're constantly having to work your counterparts, because in this profession, or the profession of a general manager, if you're not, you're probably not going to be a GM very long. You've got to find value in success where others miss it. So I think you're pretty spot on with things, Ken. Big Eddie, I just wanted to say thank you, Coach, for doing this morning show every day, even in the down times of the year. That's impressive to me. So thank you from the bottom of my do. Hey, no worries, man. I enjoy it. I'm glad you guys are all here. I'm glad you guys, seem to enjoy it as well. So I'll keep doing it until you guys tell me, hey, no mas. All right, Dave, what do you got? At Jess, that makes too much sense to me. Okay, we'll go with that. All right. Lions fan number 1. Good morning, all. Holmes is a highly intelligent man. Maybe the best GM we've ever had in Detroit. Everything he does has meaning behind it. Yeah, I would agree with that. He's purposely so just use the news video of the other day. He's purposely calling Carolina to get a feel for where they're at with things. Hey, can he get a sense that they might want to trade this player or that player? Could he get a sense that, man, they're hurting for draft capital, cap relief, whatever it is? That's part of being a GM. That is constantly making counterpart decisions. That's also why you'll see a lot of teams have history with team A and team B, because they've established relationships with that coaching staff, front office, to now both parties are more apt, if they want to make a move for a player or a draft pick or whatever, to contact that party first to keep that relationship going. They're probably going to get a preferred rate, I guess you could say, in negotiating with that team. So food for your thoughts. Phil, greetings and salutations. Back at you, buddy. Hopefully you're having a great one. Trump, woo! There you go, buddy. Drake, what do you got? Greetings and salutations all morning at Phil. Any more guitars? Yeah, I guess Phil doesn't have a guitar in his morning thing. So that's a great question. All right. Phil, I have 40 of them. All right. You got more than 2 then, man. You got a lot of them. All right, Robert, Rockstar. Yes, he is. He's rocking out. So, Phil, let me know when you're doing your next performance. Maybe we can get it on the show. All right, Tess, good morning, all in Coach D. Hey, back at you. Hopefully, have a great one. Hopefully, you're still hooping. All right, Phil, just playing around with a great Telecaster. All right. So, I don't know if that means you're refurbishing it or just playing. So, all right, Brother Ken, Coach Dan, I've been watching video of cornerback Quentin Mitchell, as you should. He's got something. He's a beast in man coverage. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I'm spot on with you. He's one of the ones, if we go the route of drafting someone, that I would probably prefer. You look at his physicality, to me, you look at the hips and the knees when a receiver gets out of their breaks, how quickly he's able to recover. So to your point, man coverage, he's able to move quickly. That's when we brought in Ife Melifanu. That was probably one of my biggest problems with him, is at least against the higher end receivers. So your number 1, your number 2s, typically, he's going to struggle with that just because his hip, his flexibility, his flexors or whatever, he's just not that fluid in it. It takes him a little longer to turn. And while it seems like a minute detail, that minute detail is, a quarter of a second difference. And you think about, to your point with Mitchell, he doesn't have that. He recovers a quarter of an inch faster. So that is just exponentially a bigger thing when you're talking about people that play man coverage. All right, Trump's, any new free agency gossip? Not today, at least. And I get that this time of year, everybody's running 50 different things on their channels, and I'm not saying that's wrong. One thing I will say from doing this channel for whatever it is, a little over a year now, all video, like some people get on me for clickbait or whatever. And that's my response to them is, all videos are clickbait. Every video is designed to get somebody to watch. Otherwise, if nobody's going to read the newspaper, you wouldn't be a reporter. I mean, and nobody wants to read your stories. I mean, so you get the gist. But I haven't heard anything new other than, I guess, what 9 Drinks said over last night about Chris Jones. And you've heard my thoughts on that. So, Bendigo, what do you got? Good morning. Good morning to you, too. All right, 9 Drinks. Trump, I sent Dan some juicy news last night. Yeah, and maybe later today or tomorrow. I'll probably more tomorrow. I got to spend time with my kiddo while she's here. But, I'll try to get that into tomorrow morning show. Phil, there we go. Yellow Stratocaster. Hey, there you go. Yep, and I see it now. So thank you for that. Trump, I always miss the first 20 seconds to a stupid commercial. Hey, you can always rewind, I guess, and then be 20 seconds behind everybody. Burgs, good morning, Duke Crew. Back at you. Hopefully you're doing well. How old is Jones? I want to say he's 29. Maybe somebody can look that up and pop that in there, but that sounds about right to me. Silver Surfer, good morning, Coach, and everyone else. Coach, forgot Powers Johnson. He is a big sausage. Check out Zach Frazier, West Virginia, nasty attitude, and overall better body type. Yeah. I like Powers Johnson. I think he would immediately come in and play for this team and at a position of strength which keeps us strong. Also gives us more flexibility if we wanted to move some guys around in the future. So I'm all for that. Bergs, yeah, 29. Yeah, I knew it was somewhere right around there. All right, brother Ken, Chris Jones, 6'6", 310 pounds. If we can get him, look out. Yeah. And here, I'll throw a scenario at you guys. Can you imagine having him next to Hutchinson, McNeil, and then I don't know, what do you do on the other side? Do you draft somebody, or do you go out and just say, at this point, the heck's with it? Resign James Houston. Get he's not great against the run. You know what, linebackers? It's your job to back him up. That'd be a pretty nice front going after the quarterback. I got to imagine, we're in an arms race, as we've talked about, for the NFC North. You see the Bears and the Packers, they're really focused on getting those defenses to be tough to help, I'm going to guess, to combat Detroit's offense and in other people's offenses as well. But, arms race means you got to pay to keep up, unless you just feel you can just nail it consistently in the draft. But it's going to be, the Chris Jones thing is intriguing to me. But I do believe, as I've kind of already mentioned, if you go out for someone like him, then you're going to have to bring in a lot of lower draft picks to offset those costs, at least as best you can. Basically make it to where his contract, it is going to be $30 million or whatever a year, but because you've offset it with so many lower end draft picks on the roster, that maybe its true value in that scenario is only like $24 million or $23 million. That might be a little extreme, but you get the idea. All right, Brent agrees to say greetings and salutations, Coach and Duke Crew. The way I see it, Brad seems to be playing chess while most other GMs are playing checkers. Best GM Lions have ever had, in my opinion. And Brent, I hope you appreciated the thumbnail, because I spent some time on working on that thing, but had a little fun with it. And hopefully you're one day closer to being fully recovered. I do agree with you, though. Brad Holmes is setting people up, and hey, that's the job of a GM. Silver Server, how about Audric Estim, running back Notre Dame, or halfback Notre Dame, 5'11", 230, patient, powerful, fast, and waits for the hole. How about him in the later rounds? In the later rounds, yeah, I could see that happening, because, again, you're talking about deferring costs if you're going to go after some bigger name player. Craig Reynolds doesn't have a massive paycheck with us, but could you shave $700,000 off that way? And that's kind of my point with the later round picks. That's why if we go for a big name free agent, whether it's, Chris Jones or whoever, I would anticipate at that point, there's a higher probability we trade out of the the 29th pick in the first round to try to acquire maybe a player and then lower end draft capital. Because if you can get 3 or 4 picks like that fill out the roster, positions you want to grow and develop players, but you can shave ultimately, I'm going to do some math in my head here. Let's say you get 5 picks in the rounds 4 or below, and you replace a little bit more veteran talent, you could probably shave $5 to $8 million off the roster that way. $5 to $8 million, if you apply all those savings to one player, and using Chris Jones as an example, that $30 million contract is now worth basically $25 to $22 million, which I'm going to guess everybody, if you came out and said, we just got Chris Jones, looking at it that way, for $22, $25 million a year, you'd say you stole them, and you'd just about everybody be in on it. All right, Robert G. Chris Jones said at the KC parade he was not going anywhere, although he did seem a little intoxicated. I got to imagine there might have been a few of them up there doing that. And, who knows what happens. If I'm his agent, I probably really didn't like that, because you're killing some negotiating power. But the other side of that, is what it is. You're living in the moment. You're living in the celebration. So whatever he says, it is. Don Kong, Super Bowl bust, 100%, buddy, and I agree. Bergs, let's give AG some talent and see what he can do. More talent, actually. Yeah, he's. I think we all get he has some talent, but not that secondary. That secondary, it's improved over 2 years ago, but it still has. It could use some upgrades, I guess would be the way to put it. All right, Trump. I'm not an AG fan. His arrogance showed when things got tough. Hey, there's some people that like him, some people that don't. I'm only going to say, as a neutral observer, that he has improved during his time here. I would say each of the 3 major coaches have, although Ben Johnson, I guess you could say, has really only been the OC for 2 years. But They're getting better without question. Andrea Fields, best GM we've ever had. I'm 68 years old. Yeah, he's definitely, if he's not number one, he's got to be pretty dang close to it. And I would be curious to see if somebody said he wasn't number one, who would you put up there? I'm probably not going with Russ. No disrespect to him. I think he could have done more as a GM, been a little bit more assertive and aggressive. All right, Brother Ken, Zach Frazier does have a nasty attitude, which is needed for an old lineman like Conrad Dobler or Richie Incognito. There you go. Boy, those are some names from the past. But, yeah, if you go out and get Frazier, I don't think most people are going to complain about it. Gary, good morning to all. Good morning to you, too. Silver Surfer, I believe it could be time to re-sign Aleem as well. He has been a 3-year starter, strong, big, reliable, can improve, and is always on the field before he gets too good and asks for too much. I'm trying to think. He's got one more year, I want to say, on his contract. That sounds right. But you're 100% right, Surfer. Every year, those positional values are all only going to go one way. So the sooner you do resign players, ultimately, the cheaper you're going to get them for a year or two. JDC, I clicked the thumbs up button so hard, I broke it. All right. I like the way you're doing it. I like your dedication to the cause. Thank you so much for that. Ed, what do you got? All right. Ed, good morning, Coach and Duke crew. Did AG improve or just the talent level improve? And should improve again this draft? The only way to answer that is from individual thoughts and opinions. Watching him and what he did last year, I think he's improved. I also think he improved exponentially from year 1 to 2. The more talent he has, it's going to make him look better, as it would any coach. But what I try to evaluate coaches, and I sit and watch, I want to watch their in-game adjustments. To me, that's one of the first and easiest ways to tell if a coach is evolving. Somebody throws something out there that you weren't anticipating on offense, whatever. How quickly, in his case, as a defense coordinator, can you make in-game adjustments? I think if you go back to the start of the year last year, it would take him a quarter or maybe the halftime to make those adjustments. You could also say the same with the 49ers. They didn't make jack for adjustments, in my opinion, until halftime. Then they did. And both the offense and the defense really got into a bad way because they couldn't make the proper in-game adjustments. And I'm not saying I would or somebody else would or whatever, but when somebody throws that counter punch at you, how quickly can you get ready to counter it? And that's where I think both OC and DC need to improve. Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. All right, Robert G. AG just needs more pieces to work with. I would agree with that. Remember, we need another defensive end and a shutdown cornerback. That would make AG look great as a DC. Yeah, I would say getting the improvement at corner is probably realistic. I mean, maybe we've really find a diamond in the rough or whatever, and we get that shutdown true number one corner. I'm just going to say probably this offseason, whether the draft or free agency, probably not a high expectation for that to happen. Hopefully it does. The defensive end is where I think we can really, really get something. Maybe that is free agency. There are some options in the draft. I am thinking more and more as I do more draft research. There's a real possibility we could get somebody who can come in and be impactful at that opposite side of Hutchinson from an early standpoint, that is. We get those guys, you get somebody to get to the quarterback quicker, then the secondary is going to look much better in a hurry. Surfer, what do you got? Do people realize what it means to play or coach for the Lions? ? It used to be a career ender unless your name was Barry. What I mean is hanging tight TI, AG, and to Goff. What he did is incredible. Yeah, and let's all be real. What the national view of the Detroit Lions was 3 years ago isn't what it is 3 years later. Everybody thinks of it differently, and I would say that's a big credit to Brad Holmes and the coaching staff. This team is now relevant. This team is now a destination for free agents. Draft picks probably don't chew out their agent and say, man, can't we get a trade or something? Now they want to be here. And it'll be real interesting to see how that impacts free agency for the next few years. Brent, what do you got? Don't forget to like, share, and copy. Hey, thanks for all that. And I appreciate all you guys are doing to help the channel grow. Kurt Steele, the infamous one. What up, Doe? What up to you too? Hopefully having a good morning, my friend. We need to get you back on the show sometime. Let me know when that fits your schedule. Southwest Lion, good morning, all. I understand players want to secure their financial future. Careers can end on a single play in football. This is true. But how many millions do you need to secure that future? Question mark. Don't have to be max paid. Yeah, and that's going to come down to the individual. I do think there's more potential with the Detroit Lions players to resign for slightly less to stay here. And obviously that's, trickle down. That's the more money you can save with player 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, you can pay other people. It's also probably one of my real questions why, or if I should say, Brad Holmes would go out and pay some big name free agent and max money. Because consider that to what you're saying, Southwest. You bring in an outsider and break the bank to get them. What's that going to say to everybody you're now asking to take a little bit of a shave off to bring in that dude or somebody else? And therein lies the problem as a GM. Robert, Dan, we all agree you are a national treasure. Woo! I'd say you guys are the national treasure. Or this show, this channel, like any other media source, it only works if there's a symbiotic relationship. I enjoy being out here every day, getting to know you guys and being a part of this show. Just like, obviously, some of you guys are here every day, literally, and we all have a good time. It's a way to kick off our days, and I'm thankful for it. All right, brother Ken, Southwest Lion, welcome back. Yeah, 100%. Surfer, the moment golf leaves, then you realize what you had. Yeah, mobility, question mark, Tom Brady, 7 Super Bowls and no mobility. Look at last year's Super Bowl. Mahomes was injured, could not run, and still beat Hurts, who could fly. Yeah, and this is also true. I put it this way. Mobility at a quarterback is a nice thing to have, but at the end of the day, if you can't sling it, if you can't read defenses, if you can't take care of it, the rest ain't going to matter. Southwest Line, thanks, brother Ken. All right, Bergs, I agreed, Trump, but the players love him, so they play hard for him. Let's see what he does with some more talent, but I'm not a fan either. Yeah, I get why people have some detractions on him for sure, but you got to hope he's going to look better with more talent. All right, Michael, howdy, Dan, Lions faithful, back at you. Hopefully having a great day. Bergs, 100% fact, Silver Surfer, I agree. Southwest, there is more of an elite. There is more to an elite quarterback than an elusive and strong arm. There's timing, accuracy, ability to read defense and go through progressions, throwing in narrow windows, etc. And to your point, if you're a quarterback that came up through college and you just rely on your athletic abilities, then I would just say this: it's going to be probably a real hard time for you to be successful the vast majority of the time in the NFL, just because everybody out there is like an elite athlete. Everybody out there is coming to get you, and they're running one way. It's going to be hard for you to take all those hits and stay upright, stay in the games for a long period of time. I can't remember the Indianapolis rookie quarterback that Anthony, was it Richardson, that came on this year? Kid's got a lot of the tools, but you could see in nervous moments, he went, back to what he knows. He went to scrambling. And unless you're spending the entire OTAs and preseason teaching these dudes how to slide, avoid contact, it don't take long for 2, 3, 4, 5 hits to start having a huge impact on those bodies. And most quarterbacks also wear lesser armor, I guess you'd say, or the pads. So those hits have a little bit more opportunity to sneak into some joints. It has an cumulative effect. Joseph, good morning, coach and do crew, exclamation points. Hope all is well this morning. Go Lions. Woo! Back at you. Hopefully you're having a great one. And I love that picture, man. That's a good one. JDC, I feel good Zen when the chats about Glenn. Go Lions. All right. I feel good Zen when the chats about Glenn. All right. You got me a little tongue-tied twisted there, but I'll go with that, JDC. Southwest Line, times like these are when you have to pay your top players. That I'm glad Disner is with the Lions. Yeah. All right. I'll go with that. Ed, I believe in Brand, but how could he do bad in his first and second draft? Third draft showed more of his talents to choose. Now comes the real test. To your point, he's did what very few general managers, especially in Detroit history, could do. I would say most of the Detroit GMs had fairly good first round selections. I think we all know a long history of busts in the second round. And then, it gets dicey like it does for most teams round 3 on down. That's not the case with Brad Holmes in Detroit. You can go through each of these drafts. I get last year's draft. You get down to Martin and some of the lower guys. We'll wait and see what happens. But you could go back to the 2021 draft, and you could say, hey, until this year, Iffy Melifonwu was an unknown. Derek Barnes was, he was all right. Jefferson was, all right. He wasn't great. But now we don't feel that way about them. Barnes has evolved into a starting linebacker. Same with Iffy. I mean, Iffy played lights out that second half of the season. You go to the 22 draft. Malcolm Rodriguez, is he going to be a starter again for the Lions? More than likely not. But now you have a guy who plays special teams, some tight end, some fullback, obviously able to make impactful plays as a linebacker. He's great against the run. Got a pick in the NFC Championship game. James Mitchell, we'll wait and see. We'll see what happens. Houston, hey, rookie year off the charts. After that, this year you just injured, so hard to evaluate him. Chase Lucas, he's a special teams player right now. Can he evolve into something more? I guess that's what we'll wait and see. We've often talked about on the show. You guys have had great points that cornerbacks typically take 2 or 3 years to evolve. So to that point, Iffy Melifonwu, kind of unknown for 2 years, last year, the year 3, kind of came on. Could Chase Lucas be the next player to fit that model? I guess we'll wait and see. All right, Brother Ken, Southwest Line, what you said reminds me of Jeff George. Had a cannon for an arm and had good footwork, but was a serious mental case with no people skills. Yeah, Jeff George, oh boy, you could do a case study on mentality with him. But the guy had maybe one of the best arms as far as just throwing power the NFL's ever seen. If you haven't seen this guy throw, go watch him, man. I mean, dude could just sling it. But to your point, yeah, he was very self-absorbed, very alpha or driver personality traits, and did not want to listen to anybody. It was his way or the highway, and he didn't like it. Tough luck. All right, Ed, what do you got? Lions were so bad 3 years ago, anybody would have helped. This is true, and that you have an outstanding point there. Whoever you brought in, as long as you drafted fairly well those first 2 drafts, they were going to play. I mean, there was just nothing to oppose them. But to your point, Ed, last year's draft, I mean, you could look at the team last year, some pretty good talent. The fact that you were able to get 4 starters and potentially more in the future, that starts speaking to your ability to evaluate talent. To further your point, when you get to this year's draft, since there's talent across the board now in Detroit, if you get starters to come in from this year's draft, you're really, really crushing the draft. That'd be 4 straight years. And man, I'm trying to think where you'd even get starters. Maybe offensive line, defensive edge, kicker would probably be one, right? And then potentially cornerback. But man, if you get a starting cornerback in this year's draft, I think you've really established this scouting department, this GM front office is just off the charts. All right, JDC, Motor City Dew Crew, finger red #1. I'm guessing that's something that doesn't pop up well on the screen. But anyways, yes, the Motor City Dew Crew. Lions Talk Live, finger red #1. All right, I'll go with that. All right, Southwest Line, exactly, Dan. Every time you pay your top players, you have to find productive players on cheap money contracts, either through the draft or undrafted free agents. Free agents, low money to approve deals. Yes. And, you use the Rams as an example. They were very cap burdened, but last year they did an incredibly good job with the draft, bringing in newer, fresher players on low-cost contracts to help offset some of those top-end contracts. And to be honest, just infuse them with some younger, fresher blood. Joseph, you're the man, coach. Thanks for that. I think I sure wouldn't mind if he was the coach of the Lions. I'll take that, man. But you guys may live to regret that, because if you think Dan Campbell's a gambler, whoo, yeah, our defense would be Blitzburg, and we'd probably be the closest thing to the run and shoot that the NFL's seen since the 90s. As a coach, I'm just highly aggressive. Doesn't mean I would turn down this, that, and the other thing, but Yeah, we would definitely get after things on both sides of the ball. We'll put it that way. You would have to guard whatever it is, 60 yards wide and 100 yards deep on every offensive play because we're going after it. Maybe it's 50 yards wide. All right. Anyways, Michael, my wife would be upset if I brought home a hooker to live with my family. Yeah, I wonder how Teddy Bridgewater's handling that. So, questions he'll have to answer. Gary, I love Jared Goff, I really do, but as a lazy boy chair GM, it's hooker time. It's a risk for sure, but from a talent and cash saving option, I'm all in. Yeah, and I get that, especially with the ability to save money, the huge attraction to only having to pay $1 million a year versus 40 or 50 million a year for Goff. I get that, but if Hooker ends up being Joey Harrington or Andre Ware, we're all probably crying in our morning Mountain Dews for a while, because at that point you then have to go out and get another quarterback and hope that person can solve the problems. Therein lies the problem. Is that so? You? Good morning. Does no one sleep in? Question mark. Haha. No, I started getting up around 5:30, and I'm gonna guess based on the timestamps on some of the comments in here, there's a lot of people that started showing up around 6:30. I'm gonna try from time to time to get the thumbnail thing, whatever, up on the channel, like before I go to bed at night, just so people want to get in sooner they can. I just have to find the time to do it, and therein lies the problem. All right, Gary, what do you got? Hey, Phil, I played keyboards and write music. It's time to get the Do Crew band together. Now, that's a thought. We can play gigs at all the home games, tailgating with Dan and the Do Crew. Yeah, you know what? That would not be a bad thing. If we could get if some of you guys are musically and vocally talented, let me know. Maybe at the tailgate we can get a Do Crew band or whatever, or something going on. I think that would be hilarious and fun. Just keep adding to it. So let me know if you guys want to do that. All right, Gary, Hooker has moved in with Teddy Bridgewater to learn it all. I'm very impressed by that and grateful to Teddy. Yeah, Teddy, it's too bad they couldn't get him to stick around. And I get he wants to coach his kids. He wants to coach, his high school, etc. But man, oh man, what a mentor. And not just to Hooker, but I know he's worked with Jameson Williams, and I'm sure other guys we're not privy to. Ed W., what do you got? A little nugget about Brad. He replaces players he trades with draft picks. This is true. Example, for Laporta and Swift for Gibbs. Look out for who he trades away. Yeah, and to your point, in Swift, yeah, I don't think anybody's complaining about us trading Swift at this point. So what you're able to do, you're able to get some draft currency for Swift. You're able to get a younger rookie running back and not have to pay the bigger contract that Swift's going to get this offseason. At least I'm assuming. So TJ Hawkinson, I mean, you guys, if you watch the show, whatever, the year that Hawk was on there, I know I did a video, whatever it was, a week or something like that before he got traded, saying I thought he was a trade target. Then when he got traded, I did a deep dive into why I thought he got traded. And there were a lot of reasons. But Ed, to your point, I'm sure a big part of it was the contract. The Lions looked at him, or Brad Holmes said, he's a good player, but maybe he's not the player we need on this team. And he didn't want to put that kind of investment in him if he didn't have that solid a belief in him. So there you go. I think you're spot on with that. Lion King, hope not a full mate on us with Goff. Yeah, and you just got to hope that Goff continues to keep developing. But I do think Goff is a lot better of a quarterback today for the Detroit Lions than he was when he left the Rams. And some of that is the quarterback position, and you can make an argument for all the positions. They just get chewed up and spit out so fast. I know a bunch of you brought up in the last week or so that using the Packers method of drafting someone, stashing him for a few years, developing them, maybe continuing doing that here in Detroit with Hendon Hooker, I think there's real validity to it. It's how it used to be without rule or question in the NFL for years. Every once in a while you'd get a Dan Marino, but that's about it. Everybody took a couple years to let those quarterbacks grow. You don't get that anymore, and that's why I think a lot of the kids that have talent don't always get to evolve into being the talented person, because not everybody can come in and be Peyton Manning and set an NFL record for throwing 40 picks in a year, and then the next year it starts clicking in. I kind of hope they sign Goff, let Hooker keep developing, and then maybe you see something in Hooker this year and say, you know what, give him another year to mature, another year to grow, and then his third year in the NFL, maybe then you're able to put him out there without getting him PTSD, which I think so many of the young quarterbacks go through because they just, especially if they have no offensive line, they just get eviscerated trying to go through those reads with 300+ pound dudes who can run 4.4, 4.5, 4.6 coming at you to hit you. And I get they're no longer allowed to intentionally hit you in the head, but those hits in those chests and everywhere else, they still add up. And those guys get beat down, and you can't read through the progressions to get rid of the ball fast enough to avoid the hits. All right, Robert G. Later, dudes. Have a good afternoon. Have a great afternoon. Hopefully, you have a great day too, Robert. And we'll see you on the next one. Michael, thanks, Coach, for another great show. Anytime. Hopefully, you guys all enjoy. JDC, Detroit Lions, rebuilding since '57. They're almost there. I think you are correct with that. Ed, I meant TJ. Yeah, I knew you were going with that with Hawkinson. Bergs, yeah, makes perfect sense. Gary off takes us to the NFC Championship game. Hooker never took an NFL snap, but it's Hooker time unless you are losing. Come on, dude. You can't be serious. Goff is quarterback number one. Yeah, and I get everybody wants to avoid paying the quarterback position big money because you got more money to spread around. But like Brad Holmes has talked about, we've talked about on the show, it's going to be a whole lot easier to get worse at that position than it is to get better. I think most of us will agree Jared Goff, if he's somewhere in the top 10 of NFL quarterbacks, he's probably not number 1 through 3 or 1 through 4. So let's just say we meet in the middle. He's the 7th best quarterback in the NFL. What is the reasonable expectation that Hendon Hooker is going to be number 8 in the NFL or number 7, let alone number 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? And to me, that's probably the biggest problem facing Detroit Lions when it comes to this quarterback chatter. I mean, we all hope Hendon Hooker can be the greatest quarterback ever. That would benefit the team, right? It would also save us some money for some while. It's just we need to see a little bit more, I think, before anybody can make that evaluation. Now, maybe the coaching staff and the front office, they've seen enough during his limited window last season where they can say, hey, maybe there is something there. Maybe we need to really go after this guy. And that's what we're going to have to wait and see. All right, guys, it's been about an hour, so I'll go ahead and wrap up shop today. If there is some breaking news later today, I'll try to get it out to you as quick as possible. I hope you all take care. Have a great day, and we'll see you all on the next Lions Talk Live. Take care, everybody.